Hi everyone, welcome back to What the FinTech, your FinTech Feel Good show. As you can see, we are still at the AWS Industry Forum here in Hong Kong, and today we have another really great speaker. We have Dave from OSL. Hi Dave, how are you?
Hey, Medhy. Very well, thank you, mate.
I'm very happy to have you here because you are one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. Your company is doing very well, and you are like well known since many years now. I want to say so. Thank you for being here.
It's very kind. Thanks for having me, Medhy.
No worries, no worries. Before we start the interview, one of the questions I like to ask to everyone is, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Dave Chapman. I'm a co-founder of OSL. OSL is a licensed and insured digital asset platform. We have our headquarters are in Hong Kong, but we have offices around the globe. We essentially provide digital asset services in the form of brokerage, exchange, and custody services to professional and institutional investors. We also provide our technology to financial institutions who are wanting to enter the world of digital assets. I've been working in the crypto and digital asset space for over 10 years now. And in my former life, I was working and consulting for investment banks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You're working on the blockchains, and like that, the industry is fast pacing, right? Does your parents understand what you are doing? Can you say how your parents describe your jobs?
Sure. I think my parents actually quite frequently remark that I'm on a roller coaster. And they ask quite often when I'm going to get off it. I think if they were going to just describe what I do, I think that they would say it's never dull. It's always exciting. It's always chaotic. And they'd probably say it's very unhealthy.
Yeah, I can see why he's saying that. Before we just deep dive into the interview and speak about OSL and what you have done with BC Group, maybe you can share a bit more about you and share with us what are the favorite thing you like to do.
The favorite thing about what I like to do, or what favorite thing about about this business and this role, this opportunity, it's probably the spontaneity of running a business in a very new industry. There's lots of challenges in navigating uncharted territory, of course, but I think that's also probably what makes it so rewarding. The path that I've taken into this, this crypto, blockchain, digital asset, digital finance space has actually opened up many adventures and opportunities that I certainly would never have experienced if I'd stuck to the corporate investment banking world. It's unlocked a massive amount of travel that I would never have undertaken otherwise, and I've met countless presidents, prime ministers, sheikhs, billionaires, very well known CEOs and founders, many amazing people, and undoubtedly also some notorious and convicted criminals.
Yeah, we can see most of them on the TV right now. But you are on the market in Hong Kong at least since 2016, if I'm not mistaken, right? The first time I see it, it was the previous name of your company. You were like there at the FinTech Week already at the time at PMQ.
Mhm.
So maybe we can ask you to describe what you have done since the beginning and how the idea of creating your company and now your big group came.
Yeah, sure, Mitty. I mean, if we talk about how did I and my co-founders get started, it's probably a relatively short story, to be honest. I discovered Bitcoin in 2012. I fell in love with it, and I was fortunate enough to have two friends, namely Hugh Madden and Ken Lowe, who were actually just as curious as myself with this new technology. They had similar technology backgrounds, and within a few weeks and a number of many discussions, we decided to leave our day jobs behind us in 2013 and start a cryptocurrency exchange. So we were one of the first cryptocurrency exchanges in Asia. The platform was originally branded as Asia Next Gen, and then we shortened that brand later to ANX. As the crypto as the crypto market continued to mature, we then actually also started another brand called Octagon Strategy. And so, whereas ANX operated as an exchange, really servicing the retail demographic, Octagon Strategy was an OTC shop that facilitated very large buy and sell transactions or block trades to more professional market. Octagon Strategy quickly became one of the largest and most successful OTC shops in the world. We were trading billions of dollars in volume every month. And then, as we next started to see the market mature again, that was around 2018. My two co-founders and I, alongside a very strategic investor, we took controlling stake of a main board listed company on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and we created a wholly owned subsidiary called OSL, and that's the company that the three of us work at right now.
And from from the memory I got from you, like being part of the FinTech Association with you as well, you got a lot of successful milestones here in Hong Kong. Maybe you can share some of the story of the group with us before we deep dive into the product.
Yeah, I mean, we have two main businesses. We have a direct to consumer business where we provide digital asset services to brokerage service exchange and digital asset custody, and we also have a B to B to C model, and that's our SaaS that's our SaaS arm of OSL, and that SaaS arm that or we actually extend the same technical and compliant capabilities that we offer to our own clients, and we afford those to institutional firms that want to provide those same services to their end clients. For example, our technology helps power some of the digital asset exchanges that are operated by some of the largest banks in the world. So one of them in particular you're quite familiar with.
Yes, yes, definitely. Over the past years, we saw a lot of companies coming on the market and trying to do the same services than you, right?
Mm.
But you are still here, and like this make a big difference between like competitors coming or partners working with you. So, what distinguishes your company over the years and still today?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and obviously the space as it gets bigger, more entrants come. Some entrants, some of the former people participating in the space leave for whatever reason. I guess what makes us different first and foremost. I think we're very different from many other platforms or firms because we take the path less traveled when it comes to compliance, risk management, security, regulatory adherence. In short, we don't operate a casino. The idea of crypto trading venues and platform have really only been around for the last 10 years. And, I think that when someone says, they operate a crypto exchange, I think that term is used quite loosely. We think about, when we talk about exchanges, we typically think about regulated exchanges like NASDAQ, Euronext, NYSE and whatnot, where there are central clearinghouses, where there are very strict rules that govern the access, govern the controls. If you look at some of these matching platforms in crypto that have emerged over the past 10 years, there are no central clearinghouses. There haven't really been any rules to monitor or govern the activity of such. I think from our perspective, whilst we probably haven't made the billions in revenue that some of these other firms have, we've chosen the path of being compliant, taking regulation very seriously, lobbying with regulators to make sure that this space is fit and proper, to make sure that there is consumer protections. And it's not sexy, but if we want this asset class to be turned into a multi-trillion one, a multi-trillion-dollar one, the reality is we're going to need some rules and regulations and some consumer protection around this space. I think those the words I've just used probably offend a lot of the libertarians that started in this space around Bitcoin. But I do truly believe that if we do want this space to become institutional, if we do want Bitcoin to go to $100,000, the reality is you're going to need this space to be regulated and institutionalized. And neither of those things are going to happen without some adults in the room providing access in a safe and orderly manner with the first new asset class that we've seen in the last 30 years. So that's probably a little bit different to what we've done. We're probably not seen as adventurous as a lot of people taking risks in faraway locations that no one's ever been to. We do work with regulators. We try to provide the right type of consumer protections. We're one of the very few companies in this space that does provide insurance on our digital asset custody services. We have client segregated banking facilities in bankruptcy remote structures. Again, what I'm saying probably doesn't excite a lot of the people that are watching us today, but the reality is this is the services and this is the caliber of access that institutions and professional investors want. And frankly, that's what we're trying to do.
And also like regulation, resiliency are really important for this business.
Absolutely,
So
100%. And I guess that's one of the things that has changed so dramatically over at least the last 10 years that I've been in this space is, when I entered this space, the regulators were trying very hard to ignore it. Banking was trying very hard to stamp it out. And that was probably the biggest struggle that my co-founders and I have had over the past 10 years is just trying to get people on board to, getting them on to acknowledge that this isn't going away, whether they like it, love it, or loathe it. This is an asset class that is here to stay, and I'm glad, or I'm happy to say, I do feel that we're on the downhill of that challenge now. We've never had more regulatory clarity than what we have today. Is there still a long way to go? Absolutely, 100%. but you've also never had as much traditional finance or TradFi support for this asset class. When my co-founders and I started in 2013, traditional financial institutions didn't want anything to do with this space. And if you fast forward to where we are today, every traditional financial institution, including the banks that didn't want anything to do with this, are now all scrambling to understand what their digital asset strategy is. And when I talk about digital asset strategy, it sounds like a good buzzword. And we've seen that buzzword or the buzzwords mature over time. When I first left investment banking to focus on magical internet money, Bitcoin, again, banks didn't want anything to do with it. But what we saw was from the banking side, it was Bitcoin's bad, blockchain's good. Okay, and then we also went another level of buzzword to distributed ledger technology or DLT. And we saw every major bank and financial institution preach about how amazing blockchain technology was going to be. And we saw, I think a lot of people, a lot of the banks on this blockchain ride, trying to find a nail for the hammer that built. And fast forward to today, and you've actually seen the sort of interest sort of move away from blockchain and now talk about digital assets. And we're not talking about just private blockchains, we're talking about Bitcoin. And so we are seeing banks that are now not only sort of dipping their toe in the water into crypto and public blockchains, but we're actually seeing them provide access to their own customers. And I think the reason why banks are having to do that is one, because their customers are insisting and demanding on it. And secondly, we're seeing from a competitive landscape, their competition is now offering access to such as well. Just this week, earlier in the week, we saw Fidelity has now, quietly launched access to all their retail clients. This is one of the largest banks in the world, is now affording crypto to their tens of millions of users. This is a huge step in the right direction, and I think that we'll start to see many other banks take similar action as well.
Also got a view here. It's what happened with FTX before and recently with the news. Most of the people who has like maybe some savings into the crypto, they try to bring it to traditional institutions or company like really regulated here in Hong Kong, maybe overseas as well. So they try to move the funds from those platforms where like maybe not safe enough for them, but they want to go back to Fidelity or banks, big banks.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there that it's probably worth teasing out. Is one, I think the fact that FTX in some jurisdictions they left Hong Kong, and it was stated that they didn't leave Hong Kong because of the upcoming regulatory regime. I'll go on record and say I think that's baloney. I think they left because there was no way they were going to adhere with the regulations. I think a lot of people are deserved better consumer protection and better regulatory control. I think that a lot of people in this space, probably, especially from a retail perspective, don't have the technical ability to custody assets themselves as much as I wish they could, and they do deserve better platforms that provide protection. I think that the adoption of Bitcoin and other digital assets, one of the stepping stones that we will take is when you have access to digital assets on your typical payment rails or your banking platforms or your broker accounts. OSL recently went live with an exclusive deal with Interactive Brokers where, as a professional investor, you can actually buy and sell Bitcoin and Ethereum through your Interactive Brokers account. And that's completely seamless. You don't need to open an account with OSL. You don't need to do anything special. It is just on the platform. And so we're very proud of that relationship we have with Interactive Brokers, and we will do a similar relationship with other brokers. And I think I'm absolutely very confident that in due course we'll establish similar relationships with banks. So I do believe in the near future you will be able to open up your internet banking platform and you will have access to crypto. And I think that's a huge stepping stone for adoption. And frankly, super excited about it.
Change maker so for the industry.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. We spoke about a bit like about like the industry right now, but if we focus on your company OSL, does any I don't want to say secret sauce, but did you develop a couple of features, unique features on your company or product that people don't know about it?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about OSL, or I can talk about the 10 years that I've been in crypto. We've done a number of firsts. So maybe I'll talk about the culmination of companies that I've had the pleasure of co-founding. We were the first in the world to open an actual bricks and mortar store to buy Bitcoin. And we actually opened it somewhat controversially, but coincidentally at the same week that Mt. Gox collapsed. So you can imagine a lot of people, hundreds of media A lot of interested parties who wanted to turn up. This is the first place in the world you could physically turn up to a desk, hand over cash, and receive Bitcoin. So that was a first. The company at the time was also the first in the world to introduce a Bitcoin debit card. So you could use a debit card as you would on MasterCard, China Union Pay rails, and behind the scenes, you're actually spending Bitcoin from your account. I think we were the first to introduce a multi-currency matching engine platform. So that was a bit before its time. For the technologists in the room in the arena today, we're the first, I think, to provide a fixed API very early on. From an OSL perspective, we were the first to be afforded the virtual asset licensing regime. So we have a Type 1, Type 7 license to operate in the virtual asset space under the purview of the SFC. So yeah, lots of firsts, a number of different companies there, but always trying to be a pioneer in this space, and hopefully that continues.
And also, I remember from my memory, if I'm not mistaken, right? Maybe I'm making a mistake, but you were also like supporting some of the development of blockchain industries in the UAE or in other countries at that time.
We've done so. One of the advantages of our SaaS platform is that we can extend our capabilities to others, and we've made a number of engagements, partnerships, services around the globe, and one of those would include the UAE. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. I have a couple of questions for you as well, but did you face any difficulties when you start the company? Yeah, I know you spoke about like bankers not interesting on having the product, but
Yep.
you as an entrepreneur and having your own company.
I mean, challenges of doing just a startup in general. I think that the undertaking a startup comes at the cost of health, wealth, and relationships. And you need to remain very dedicated, at least in the very early years, before sometimes a benefit is realized. And if you're not prepared to sacrifice some or all of those in the early years, honestly, I'd probably, not even probably, I'd really don't suggest you actually even consider doing a startup. It's tough. It did seem impossible for anyone to really believe in what we were doing at the start. As I said earlier, a lot of people thought we were had a few screws loose, leaving respected banking and financial services careers behind us to go and play with magical internet money. But at the same time, the rewards pay a lot of dividends when you get it right. But there are certainly a lot of challenges in doing a startup.
But where did you find the motivation to continue to do it, and why did you continue to do it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I've got two extremely amazing partners that have gone on this journey with me. I think that's probably one of the reasons why that they are depending on you. But also, as the business starts to continue, when we first started, we had maybe 5 staff, 10 staff, 30 staff, 100 staff, 300 staff. Um, whilst that might sound prestigious, the reality is you then also have that amount of people depending on you. So that would be one of the reasons for keeping going is just the dependency of making sure that that so many livelihoods are dependent on you. But I think also just the drive to succeed, and remembering why you got started and what you wanted to do despite all the challenges, and continuing to go day by day.
Good motivation, I think so. um, um, we speak about a lot of the like people regret or what they would like to know earlier or what they can say to their early self, like a young self. But for you, your company is successful, you are on the market for many years, so there is anything you wish to know before, even if you know where you are going today?
I mean, a lot of people say it. I'd say, like, with enough determination, persistence, and hard work, anything is possible. And I think, I remember, you know, working in banking and hearing motivational speakers and what else. And a lot of people say this stuff, but until you've experienced it, it's sort of difficult to believe. So I'll be again one of those people that have echoed people that have said it before me. With enough determination, hard work and persistence, really anything is possible.
You're a co-founder of your company and your group, right? And you have like a C-level position. So how can you describe your jobs and what do you want? Like maybe like people don't understand on your jobs, you can explain this, but also like they don't see the different difficulties for you or the growth that you had.
Yeah, I mean, I think like many roles, not just within this industry, and not even necessarily within an entrepreneurship. I think even in typical corporate roles, I think people see the top of the iceberg. That they see the fun parts, and they don't necessarily see or understand or appreciate the work and effort that goes into making sure that that top of the iceberg remains above the water. But specifically, around this industry, I will say that there are many easier industries to work in than in crypto, though probably not as many as exciting. This industry can age you pretty fast. I do really believe that the 10 years that I've worked in crypto does feel like 100 years in my old banking world.
If we come back a bit about like because we speak about your career right now, but about the OSL, you have different products and you have different features. Do you have a way to develop your products by ideation with your teams? Do you listen to the feedback of your customers, or do you like operate in a way that you have like strategy in mind and you want to execute it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Medhy. In terms of the way we go to market, it would be hopefully, I'd like to say it's through customer demand. So customer demand trying to fit, trying to release a product or a service that people need, and hopefully it's something that we have a competitive edge on, something that the market needs. There have been times when we have released product that wasn't fit for the market. There have been times when we've released product too early, and the market wasn't ready. And there's been times when we also have sort of discontinued that product rather than waiting for the market to catch up. So there's a little bit of a guessing game, I'd say, in terms of what time at what stage do you release product. Someone once told me many years ago, and it's probably advice that I've listened to if I can still remember it today, is if you wait until your product is perfect, you will never release it, and someone will release it before you. But yeah, that's a little bit of how we release product and what we serve. I guess as a startup, probably not so much now, but in my early days, I do feel that you know from a startup perspective and with product, it comes down to survival, unfortunately, and it does feel like there's a soccer ball over there, and you'll go to kick that one, and you'll find another soccer ball over there, and you'll go to kick that one. And as I said, that's really because you need to survive. If you don't make money, you don't make revenue, you can't make payroll, you end up shutting the company down. Now it's a lot more structured than that. We do have a significant amount of runway, and so we can don't have to focus on so many goalposts and remain in the straight and narrow.
Perfect, perfect. So is any technology or innovation that was instrumental for the success of OSL and your group in general?
I mean, I'd probably defer that to our technology team. We've definitely gone through a huge amounts of technology and in terms of methodologies that we've used along the way. I think it would probably be a little bit rude of me not to acknowledge that we run a lot of our platforms on AWS, given that we are sitting in an AWS conference with 3,000 people. So it's definitely a little plug for AWS. But like I said, I'd probably defer that to our technology team.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Do you see any specific trends right now on the market? Especially recently, we got like some news about like the different banks having difficulties and companies. But do you see also like some trends coming on the market from emerging technology, new adoption of solutions?
Sure. I think if we talk in the broader sense of what are the trends that we're seeing, at least in our industry, it wasn't until the last few years ago that it was considered acceptable to actually be holding some exposure to crypto. Prior to that, I think people thought you were crazy. And as I mentioned, crypto and digital assets are here to stay. And regardless of what is happening in the US with the bank implosion and rumors that crypto is being shut down, the reality is that digital assets, like I said, have now more regulatory clarity and more TradFi support than ever before. Um, Separately, I think every industry on the planet, crypto included, is going to be disrupted by AI. And at OSL, we believe in that so much that everyone at OSL, regardless of your job title or your function or your department, is actually required to go through mandatory AI training to benefit and utilize tools like ChatGPT. I am probably just as, if not more, excited about AI than I am right now, as when I was first introduced to Bitcoin in 2012. So there aren't many technologies that come along and have that much of an impact on me. I remember the first time I saw the internet in the early '90s, dial up. Not many people understood what the attraction was. I definitely fell in love with it straight away. The next time that sort of attraction happened was Bitcoin, and now it was AI. I think VR somewhere between Bitcoin and AI stepped in a little along the way, but definitely not with the same level of attraction that I've had with the internet, Bitcoin, and now AI.
You are collaborating with some of the banks,
Mhm.
and you are one of the service provider for those banks. Did you find like difficulties at the very beginning to work with them when you start to do this collaboration and become a service provider? And do you think like this kind of collaboration changed now?
It's a really good question. It's an easy one to answer. At the start, yeah, it was extremely difficult to not I wouldn't say work with banks or convince them. They'd already made that step themselves. It was more so satisfying them from a regulatory perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective, from a risk management perspective. You know, to to repeat what was said at a number of times is the conversations we've had with a number of banks is they're glad that there's an adult in the room and then we speak their language. And so for us, coming from the investment banking side with a lot of the lot of talent in OSL, having coming back from traditional finance, we do understand the type of challenges and controls that a financial institution must adhere to. And I think that's what makes our technology so different from a lot that is out there. I think the conversations that we've had with investment banks that do eventually move on to sign up and use our technology services and our software, a lot of the challenge that we've had in the past is convincing the likes of compliance teams that they're going to sign off on it. And when we walk into a room with a whole bunch of banks compliance teams, the reception that we receive walking into the room is very different from when we're walking out. When we walk into the room, the arms are crossed, and the initial reaction is, I'm not signing off on this. There's no way I'm going to allow us to trade Bitcoin and crypto. It's used for malicious activities. It's used for dark web. It's used for sanctioned activities. And when we sit them down and explain to them and demonstrate the compliance capabilities that we have, that we can screen in real time every coin and token that enters our platform, and we can put it and quarantine it if it hits a sanction list or has been detected to have used on dark web activity and whatnot, they're actually extremely impressed. And so the reception from walking in from when we're leaving is usually one of, I wish we had these types of tools for our traditional financial business. And so that's part of the fun of convincing the necessary stakeholders at financial institutions that they're going to undertake on this journey. That is part of the fun part, sometimes challenging. But as more and more TradFi institutions adopt it, it also becomes easier.
Understood. Yeah, mass adoption from the companies,
Yep.
definitely.
Yep.
I know like you develop platforms, infrastructure, software. So the next question is a bit stupid, but what is a structural advantage of your company, and like what do you hold in terms of technologies that the company like banks or financial services don't have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit. One of the reasons that we structured the company the way we did is that we are a main board listed company on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The main board listed group is called BC Group. Our ticker is 863, and we did that to provide the financial transparency that every other main board listed company has to go through. So people were an open book. I think the fact that we were first to get and obtain the SFC virtual asset license, we've had that now for almost just actually over 2 years. We are audited by a Big Four auditor. We're trying to provide the level of assurance that a large, respected financial institution would. And finally, we were the first in Asia and second in the world to be afforded crime insurance on our digital assets in our custody. And if you look at this industry as a whole, it's rampant with people who have lost digital assets through theft or malicious activity or whatever. From these quasi custodians, and so we've tried to take the path less traveled. We've tried to provide that level of assurance that people would expect, if they're dealing with a bank. And from a technology perspective, what we have done is not only tried to go to market as quickly as we can, providing access to cool products. We've actually made it in a way that does actually tick the box from a compliance, from a risk management perspective, from a security perspective. Excuse me. Again, the words that I'm using aren't particularly sexy, but the reality is, for the demographic that we're servicing and that we're targeting, these are just the very much the basics that we need to offer.
Yeah, understood. We also spoke, like, I would like to elaborate a bit more on this, but you also speak about, digital asset services that you provide to other financial institutions at the very beginning, and how like banks now are adopting more solutions. such as the crypto, digital assets. But what is the part of your team and your company to work on these ecosystems with financial institutions, maybe also with other service provider, where you can come all together and be or orchestrating that ecosystems or participating on this ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, we work with many different third parties from a compliance perspective, from a matching engine perspective. What we do is we basically provide the core platform around digital assets that interfaces between all of those. I'm not jumping the gun a little bit, but we're about to launch a new product called Finlink, and Finlink offers someone like a bank to be able to integrate digital assets into their books and records platform, into their legacy banking platform very, very easily. And so, in as little as 12 weeks, we can actually complete a full proof of concept with the bank, and that's getting a huge amount of interest from banks, because the reality is, as they move into digital assets, they have a buy or build decision. Trying to build something around the first new asset class we've had in 30 years, given the bleeding edge or difference of ledger technology. This is a asset class that if you lose it or it's stolen, it's completely gone. It's immutable. And so if you look at it's very different from the traditional banking world. And so the reason why we're excited about this product, and the reason why we're getting so much interest around this Finlink product, is because it does actually allow banks to engage very quickly, and complete a proof of concept where they can add digital assets to their legacy banking platform. And frankly, we're excited about it.
12 weeks is good. I think like for most of the POC, it's necessary.
Yeah, 12 weeks is good. I mean, it's a buy or build decision that banks need to make. Where we want OSL to become is that that de facto platform of choice for banks that want to move into this asset class. I want it to become, and we want it to become, career suicide for anyone else who makes a decision other than it being OSL.
Perfect. All the best for this one. I know that you need to go to stage after this, but I would like to ask you like 2 or 3 more questions.
Sure.
One of this is like, do you have like any piece of advice for anyone listening right now or later on this podcast?
Sure. I have a couple of pieces of advice. I would say develop a critical mindset, and also develop your own independent thinking. Um, Always verify information before accepting that it's true, especially if it's from people of influence or organizations that hold a great deal of power, governments, central health organizations, and whatnot. I think with COVID, I think that has opened up a huge amount of possibility that people really didn't think about before. Another piece of advice would be, don't be afraid to step outside your own comfort zone and take calculated risks, but make sure to weigh the potential rewards against the potential consequences. And of course, always have a backup plan for when things don't go as expected. And then finally, my last piece of advice was to start taking AI seriously. It's going to change our lives in more ways than we can imagine. And whether you like it, love it, or loathe it, it is going to happen. So if you're not seriously considering and playing with AI, start that now.
Thank you for the advice. Thank you very much for the advice. What's next for you?
What's next for me? Wow, it's a very good question. I think it just continues the way it is. I mean, I've been on this journey for over 10 years now. It is a roller coaster, as my parents describe it. Am I getting off anytime soon? I don't think so. I'm looking forward to the next achievements that OSL make. I think what's happening right now around the world with traditional finance, it is creating a perfect storm for Bitcoin and for digital assets. And so I think we are at the cusp of potentially the next bull market from a price appreciation perspective. But I think even more importantly than price, I think it's just the change of what's going to happen in finance. And fortunately, I have the privilege of being at the epicenter of that. And I can't see myself trying to move away from it.
Thank you very much. Where people can learn more about you, your platforms, your company?
Sure, Medhy. So our website is osl.com. It's a pretty easy one. I'm also on Twitter, probably not as vocal as yourself and others on Twitter, but my handle is I am Dave Chapman. I think they're the 2 primary spots to go to.
Okay, perfect. I don't want to take more of time for you because you have like to go to see your colleagues on stage right now. But
Sure.
Thank you very much for coming today. It was a pleasure to have you here, and big pleasure for me. Yes.
Thanks, Medhy. I appreciate it. And look forward to the next time we get to speak.
Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Thank you.